geek. Talking baseball every week. Because they're Gleeman and the Geek.
And welcome to Gleeman the Geek, presented by Black Stack Brewing, now in a liquor store near you. I'm John Bonus of Truth Daily. With me, Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic.
We have a new year, same Twins.
Yes.
Similar to...
Not the same Twins as they were last year this time.
No?
No. Very different than 2025.
Not that different, though. Why are they so different?
Well, they got about 10 guys different than they had at this time, and they, well, I guess they're still I guess they're not really for sale anymore. New minority partners, new CEO.
That one's just new first name, same last name.
New manager.
Yeah, okay. You're an optimistic. Are you a New Year's like resolution type?
No, I don't do resolutions. I do sometimes sit down and figure like what my goals are going to be for the year. I have not yet done that this year. I'm still wrapping up 2025. Trying to get some stuff in under the deadline here.
My goal for you in 2026 is to be less nice of a person.
I will work on
Not
that.
to me.
F you, Aaron
Right.
Gleeman.
To me, you have no problem. I've gotten you conditioned. But how about be a little nicer to me and a little less nice to the other however many billion people you interact with per year? Yeah, so, I mean, Twins-wise, obviously, it's funny. It's been like a week and a half since we did the last free show, the last Friday show. And that was coming off the press conference with Tom Pohlad, and we talked a lot about that, obviously. At that press conference, I think it was Betsy Helfand from the Pioneer Press.
Right. Yeah.
Said something. It was like a half hour into the press conference. She said something as a question to Tom Pohlad. She was like, I'm paraphrasing, but she was like, what are kind of your first orders of business now that you've taken over for your younger brother and now you're running the team? And he was a little like pushed off course by the topic, and his response was, well, I've been told that the organization takes 2 weeks off right about now. So I guess take 2 weeks off. And I laughed at that in the moment, but it's basically 2 weeks later and they haven't done a single thing. I don't even think they did a minor league signing or anything over the last 2 weeks. So not unexpected. And also obviously we focus on the Twins, but not unique to the Twins. I mean, every year, basically similar to life in general, but as soon as Thanksgiving hits, then you roll into Christmas.
Right.
You roll into New Year's from there. The baseball world, it doesn't shut down. There's the spare signing. There was one yesterday with the Astros, signed the Japanese pitcher, Japanese pitcher, which is kind of interesting. But like the baseball world really does shut down. The key though is, now January 2nd, as we're recording this, and you're basically 6 weeks out from spring training at this point, which means you're 2+ months into the off season. So you're well over, the halfway mark. You're down to the you're like 2/3 of the way through the offseason roughly. And I wouldn't say we're surprised by where the Twins are, but in terms of lack of activity and lack of changes, that's why when you were like, it's a lot different from 2025.
Well, I mean, it's a lot different than, you're right. It's not a lot different than how they ended 2025. Right. That's for sure. I will say I'm actually a little surprised they signed Josh Bell as early as they did. Honestly, I think that was a bigger, earlier signing than I expected, and I wouldn't have been shocked if at this point I wonder at this point last year, had they made any moves whatsoever? I mean, they didn't really make any moves at all, much in the way in terms of anything other than their bench, but like Bader didn't sign before now. That was the biggest thing they had. Colomb didn't sign until February.
You're right. I mean, Bader signed first week of February.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
this has been the modus operandi of the Twins for, ever since Falvey took over, except for like a couple years in between there when they actually had some payroll increases, and so they could spend some money on some stuff. As soon as they kind of got back to the point where it's like, oh no matter what, our payroll next year is going to be based on like, we'll bring back the guys we obviously have to bring back, and then maybe add another $10-15 million to fill out the bench. Other than that, that's what we see is what we have gotten. And we asked Falvey about that actually at the winter meetings where I think I said the question was basically like, should fans the problem with signing everybody late in the season, which we know you like to do,
Yeah.
is that it feels like the good players have been sort of picked over a little bit.
Right. I mean, for them, it's we always talk about like if you want to be perceived as a play, like let's say you're a hitter,
Right.
you want to be perceived as having the best possible season. You want to hit 350 in April and then hit
Yeah, right.
250 for the rest of the season.
That's right.
Whereas it because then you've spent the whole year with your batting average in the threes coming down, and it's
Right,
the
yes,
same
right, yeah.
side of thing as what you're saying is like, ultimately the role of the front office or the job of the front office is to put the best possible team on the field. Now, we can argue about whether they're making a real legitimate effort to do that, but it doesn't so much matter whether you sign the guy day one of the offseason or day 101 of the offseason. However, like you're saying, when your MO as a front office is, dictated by your lack of spending ability, which is self-inflicted, obviously, but they clearly feel like they other than the spare Josh Bell, and there's a couple moves we can point to pretty early on, but they clearly feel like they have to let the game of musical chairs play out
Yeah.
for several months, in some cases drag into spring training before they can kind of get access to players at price points that they feel like is doable for them. And that works some of the time because you end up getting guys on 1 year deals like Harrison Bader, for instance,
Sure.
where he had wanted a multi-year deal for the whole offseason. And it took him 3 or 4 months for his agents to realize that just ain't happening.
Right.
And once it wasn't happening, some of the maybe 1 year spots had also dried up at that point because everyone had filled their outfield needs. And so the Twins swooped in. They signed him for $6 million. They got a really good, first half of the season, and then they traded him for what I think is pretty good value there. So it works sometimes. When it doesn't work, though, well, there's two things. One, you're getting at, which I'll circle back on here, but it doesn't from a roster performance standpoint. Sometimes it doesn't work because sometimes what you figure out is the guys you end up being able to swoop in and sign at those reduced prices are sometimes not the best fits for your roster. Like it's a beggars can't be choosers type of situation. You're like,
Right.
oh, well, we could have used a right-handed guy here, but okay, a lefty's available cheap, so we got him.
Right.
Or we could have used, whatever it is. But the other thing that we've seen over the years with the Twins, and it's been a mixed bag. I'm not saying this happens all the time, but you learn sometimes there's a reason these guys were left unsigned for so
Right.
long. And guys,
That
by
might,
the way,
that might not be obvious from their stats. You know what I
Right.
mean? Maybe they're not a great clubhouse fit, or maybe they,
right.
you
Or
know,
they're just trending the
they're
wrong
just trending
direction.
downward, or yeah, that's right. Right.
There's a little bit of a wisdom of crowds where it's like one front office might have one opinion that's directly opposite, but if you get 30 front offices together on a guy and the consensus is there's no way in hell we're giving this guy a multi-year deal, and then the Twins swoop in February and give him a 1 year deal, and the Twins are like, oh wow, this is really good value. He's not a perfect fit, but we never would have been able to sign this guy for the 1 year deal we signed him to 2 months ago. The problem that you sometimes find out is, well, maybe there's been
Manny Margot can't play center field anymore.
exactly, or there's some other
right, yeah,
there's some
exactly.
other instances of that too, and so
Yeah.
that's the risk reward. I mean, the reward is just you're getting okay value on cheap guys. The risk is that you're in the scratch and dent aisle, and sometimes the contents of a dented can are not edible, basically. So that's where they're at. Like we said, it's not surprising. But then the thing I think you were hinting at, which is tied to this, and I've brought this up with Twins officials over the years and had decent conversations about it. Obviously, they don't think it's that important, but my thing is, if every offseason, you're not making that many exciting moves generally.
Sure.
But
right.
then the few moves of any note that you are making, like last offseason, Harrison Bader, let's say, or 2 offseasons ago, Carlos Santana, etc., something that at least
Sure.
relatively hardcore fans are going to get into. If you're waiting 3 months into the offseason to make those moves, you've spent 3 months with nobody caring at all about the Minnesota Twins, particularly because you're right in the middle of hockey season, football season, basketball season, Gophers, all that stuff. And I've asked them, like, do you feel like you guys are missing out on, and this is just simplistic,
sort of a
but
marketing opportunity.
yeah,
here,
or
right?
just
Yes.
being in front of people every couple of weeks instead of going from in this case, late September when they got eliminated to who
Sure.
knows, February? I mean,
Right.
to go from basically October 1 to February 1 almost every year where you made basically no headlines or at least no positive headlines. I mean, the headlines they've made are you fired the manager,
Right. Yes.
you fired some coaches, and then you had a new but not really new ownership structure
Right.
change. And
Right.
so they obviously brush it off because from the Twins' perspective, from the front office perspective at least, their point is, well, if we pushed harder to make moves in November, December, January, yeah, we would be in front of fans and there'd be a more interesting offseason. But if we're just trying to put the best team on the field, we would not have access to the caliber of player
Right.
that we get
Exactly.
access to
Right.
at those price points in February, which is valid, except I don't know that they've done that great at this whole late signing production. Like there's been hits and misses, obviously. I'm not saying
Sure.
they've done horribly,
Right.
but
Yes.
I don't know that in general that's paid off. I mean, you can look at their record over the last 5 years. They haven't really done much winning. Although, again, all of this, as almost anything is at this stage, is ultimately tied directly to ownership not spending. I mean, like you said, when they had some money, when they had $160 million payroll, it's not that they were coming out first day making 10 trades and 10 signings, but
Right.
they were at least being linked to Correa. They were being
Right.
linked to some
Well,
trades.
I mean,
The thing now is they haven't even been linked to anything really.
right.
Like even like reliever, like even pretty low wattage stuff.
Even I think it's probably worth pointing out that that 2023 season, the off season beforehand, was very active and very Twins focused early in the offseason. That's the season. That's the when they signed Correa to the multi-year deal, was before the 2023 season, right? So there was a lot more. I mean, it's another. I guess it all comes down to you really shot yourself in the foot after the 2023 season, right? Because
Right.
not only you built momentum not just by signing Correa, not just by raising payroll and looking legitimate and winning a couple of games in the playoffs and going to the ALDS and giving the beating the Astros on the road, all this stuff that was rolling in your
You
direction.
make it
But you'd
sound
also
so fun, John.
you'd also built momentum that offseason as
Right.
rare, which was a rare occurrence for what we'd seen. I mean, I guess even 2 years earlier with the Josh Donaldson signing, that was even a January signing. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't
Well,
an
I
early
mean
signing,
that was
but
definitely an example of he wanted more
right.
years and
No,
more
you're right.
money. And by the time, January rolled around or
You're right.
whenever it was clear he wasn't going to get that. And they swooped in again, an example of, I don't think that,
Maybe the market was more right than we were right. I mean,
right.
it's just so we're clear, that is sort of a truism one way or the other. Every time you sign a free agent, the market is against you on that free agent, right? That the market
Yeah. I mean,
you're outpaying what everybody else paid that particular player, right?
right. It's called the winner's curse, which
Where's
is
his curse,
like
right? That's right.
even in like a eBay situation, you have by definition, if you
Right.
won the bidding, is
Yes.
eBay still a thing? I don't know.
Yes, it still is.
If you win the bidding, by definition, in almost every circumstance, you've paid more than everyone else was willing to pay.
Yes.
And so you're going to end up like that. Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, free agency in general, whether you sign the guy in December, February, November, everything in between, I mean, it's a crapshoot. You're dealing with older players, you're dealing with higher salaries, you're dealing with, guys changing circumstances and teams and stuff like that where they were comfortable. So, I mean, free agency, it's hardly a sure thing or, a
Right.
huge success rate even if you sign guys early. But I think, yeah, and it all trickles down, like I said, from ownership not having money. But it's interesting now, like I said, baseball in general and the Twins certainly have been kind of off the clock here for 2, 3 weeks or longer than that, really, a
Sure.
month or so since Thanksgiving. But it really ramps up around Christmas. Well, I mean, I think in past years, this like first week of January is when stuff really starts to kind
Yes.
of ramp back up because what you get now, it's almost like coming back after your semester break in school or something. It's like, all right, now we really got to get back down to business here.
Yes.
We got to finish the semester strong, and it's like everybody knows what their needs are at this point. I just don't know. I mean, this has been the topic for the whole offseason for us, but like I just don't know what the Twins feel like they want to even do at this stage, or can even do. Or I'm talking about the front office,
Right.
obviously,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I mean, it's not often that a 92 loss team the year before, which the Twins were, makes no major trades or really free agent signings. I mean, we can debate if Josh Bell qualifies as that, but like most 92 loss teams,
Yes.
and part of this is because they already traded guys like you mentioned, where we were
Right.
talking at the beginning. They already traded 10 guys at the deadline. I mean, that's the big change. So it's a little disingenuous to say like what they finished with. But I mean,
Right.
just literally, what the roster you finished with as a 92 loss team, and they were even worse than that in the last 2 months, obviously, is almost the identical roster. Like they've made no they've made no trades whatsoever.
Right.
Josh Bell is the only free agent, or the only free agent signing. They have made a trade for Alex Jackson. I don't want to
I guess,
literally
yeah, that's true. I
negate
mean,
him,
I
but
guess there've been a couple of
yeah, I
guys
mean,
that will make the 26-man roster
Eric,
that have ended up being picked up. Yes.
yeah, Alex Jackson and Eric Orzy. Um,
Kreidler, I guess.
that was a waiver claim, I
Oh,
think,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
from
You're right.
Pittsburgh, I think.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, either way, I mean, it's to run it back. I mean, this has been the theme that we've discussed now for 3 off seasons. The run it back plan, and it's clear they're going to do that, I would say, and we're used to that. It's the same debate we had last. I thought it was a mistake last offseason.
Yes.
And I think I was right about that. Didn't
Yeah,
take
right.
some genius to know that. I think it's definitely a mistake this offseason. But again, that's only partly the front office to blame. Like it is true that no matter what the financial circumstances are for the team, no matter what the budget the front office is being given, and it's clear it's very low. It's cut again for the third time in 4 years, basically. But within that, I mean, even if the payroll they've been given is 110 million, let's say,
Yeah.
you can make trades. Like, I mean, and
Right.
that's the
Yeah,
thing
sure.
that I don't quite get the last 2.5 years, or really last offseason and this offseason. And, we talked to Falvey about this several times where it's like, okay, I get the payroll is being slashed, and I get that limits your options. It makes you even more prone, like we just discussed, to kind of have to wait out the market to get a couple bargains. I also get why it makes you maybe less aggressive in general. I mean, my opinion of what they're doing right now is, like I said, a half measure. I asked Tom Pohlad that,
Sure.
and he denied that, but that's my view of it. But what I don't really get last offseason and this offseason is, we've talked to people up and down this organization, players, managers, coaches, front office, where it's like what is the real downfall here, aside from the trickle down of the money aspect, which is maybe the real downfall. But beyond that, it's just the core of this team, the dozen guys, let's say, that they thought they were going to be able to build around over like a 5 year span, has just not stepped forward, especially offensively. And to my mind, it's getting worse. And they just keep sort of doubling down on that. And it almost feels like, if we're going to continue the doubling down betting casino analogy, it almost feels to me like they're doubling down on it just because they don't feel like getting up and going to a new table.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Where
Yeah.
it's just like, all right, I'll just keep playing here. Like I'm losing money. Nobody seems that interested. The dealer's not fun here, whatever. All my friends are in the different room
Yeah.
playing. I'll just keep playing this, whatever. If I lose, if I lose. And that is the disappointing thing. Although, you have 6 weeks. Uh, if we entered this thing, I'd say the majority of their moves were going to come
Well,
after January 1st anyway. So that hasn't really changed. As you said, the Josh Bell thing in and of itself is, probably the 50th or higher percentile outcome in terms of both impact and timing of a move. As sad as that is, it's
right.
not a big
Yeah.
move or anything. So yeah, that's kind of as we reset it a little bit
I'm
for the
trying to think of like
year.
the last, significant trade they made. And really, I mean, it was basically a rise for Pablo, right?
Well, you're saying to bring in talent.
I'm saying where you moved a core player, where you
Well,
traded away a
the
core
tr-
player.
the
Luis
trade
Ariz at that point was a core player.
the trade deadline
Oh no, no, yeah. I mean, I guess, but I'm
off
talking about in
season.
the off season here,
Yeah.
like trying to shake up your core.
Right.
It was-
Which by the way is almost exactly 3 years ago, because it's right
right.
around it was January of 2023. And that's
Yeah, that's
basically
right.
within about 10 days of the Correa signing too. So 3 years ago, almost exactly 35 and a half months ago, whatever it was, they were extremely active. They were making, you know, veteran trades for
Sure.
Pablo
Yeah.
Lopez. They were signing Carlos Correa. There was at that point Joe Pohlad, who was running things, was almost doing like a victory dance
Yeah. Right.
already,
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about this is just the start. We could spend more, and then you fast forward 3 years, and not only is their payroll at 60 million less than it was, not only have
Right.
they dumped Correa, not only have they dumped half the team since then, not only has Joe Pola had been pushed out, which we can talk a little bit about that more.
Switch
They
managers.
and the manager's gone. They literally haven't done anything of note in terms of bringing in guys.
Right.
Obviously, the trade
Yeah.
deadline they sent the guys out. So it has been, I don't want to say shocking, but it is such a change of course. And I mean, I just keep going back to selfishly, not only as people who talk about the Twins for a living, you and I, but just as people want an interesting team.
Right.
It does suck to be like, it is a buzzkill to not be able to even speculate on a low end or mid tier free agents and trades. I mean, that's such an essential part of being a baseball fan. I mean, it's a part of being a
Sure.
sports fan in general. Is
Sure.
all right, season's over. Unfortunately, next season doesn't begin for 4 or 5 months, whatever. But thankfully, we got the hot stove. I mean, it's got its own name, and Correa, Donaldson are examples, but most of the time, we've been doing this a long time about this team, this show. Most of the time, we are focused on, mid-tier free agents and some, trades they can make. And this offseason, we've talked about it some, but it's almost felt like, what's the point?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
they're so uninvolved in all this stuff that, yeah, okay, Josh Bell, and we did talk a lot about Josh Bell. I was happy we sort of foreshadowed that signing. I was glad we did that. But it is a buzzkill to just be like, you just go 4 months where it's just like nobody needs to think about the Twins
Yeah.
at all. And I do think that is a mistake for them
Well,
in general, but it's not even, at the top of the list of mistakes.
right. Yeah. I had a conversation with a Twins official at the GM meetings about kind of this topic. And I guess maybe a broader view of this topic, which is so often the business side would like the that would like the baseball side to do things that the baseball side's like, no, that's not smart. We shouldn't do that
Right.
way, right? And the business side is like, yeah, but it'll sell tickets. Do you know what I mean, right? And I mean, this is, whether that is, trading away bullpen arms or, a signing that, might of a big name, but you don't think he's got that much left in the tank, or, to their credit, I guess, the baseball side tends to stick to its guns on stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? And that's probably the way that it should be. I mean, I think it's certainly the sort of thing that you and I pay attention to, right? But you can see from a business standpoint, especially when part of the challenge of running the baseball side is, oh, we don't have the revenue that we should,
Right.
we don't have the payroll we think we should have. We need more revenue on the side. And the business side's over there going, hello, we've been telling you how to get more revenue, and yeah, but you're also telling us how to spend money, unwisely. So, I mean, I think that's this is a example. This, making moves late in the offseason as opposed to early in the offseason is an example of something that every, baseball team struggles with, I think, and it is just sort of the natural push and pull between, and we want to run the baseball side as smart as we can versus we want to run the baseball side in as popular a way as we can.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm not even thinking about it in terms of like direct ticket sales. Cause I think at this point, if they sign a reliever 2 weeks ago, it's not. I'm just
right,
thinking of
right,
like, if you do this many years in a row, or 6 out of 8 years, where you're
yeah,
just gone from anybody's thoughts for 4 months, it's not that like, oh, you're going to sell 600 fewer tickets. I mean, I'm sure there is some of that. It just makes people not care.
right, yeah,
Like,
that's
I
right.
mean, a
Yeah,
big thing is like daily or at least weekly thinking about the team, like
yeah,
that sort of thing. The other thing I'll say is, this is semantic stuff. Like, I mean, like I said, their goal is to just put the team on the field opening day.
sure,
This wouldn't be a conversation if they just weren't, if they were a good team over the last 5 years.
right, that's right.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
So,
but the other thing is, my ideal, mid-level front office would be, I actually push back at the idea that they've expressed to me, and that I think is conventional wisdom for some people, of, oh, if you don't have much money to spend, and they don't, you have to let the market play out, because that's how you get bargains. That's how you get decent players at the low price points. That's why people shop at the dollar store, whatever it is.
Right.
There is some truth to that, but as we just talked about, that's hit or miss. I mean, it's riskier than it seems, I think, because you are in the clearance aisle, you are in the markdown aisle, and sometimes there are a reason why that stuff has not been bought yet. But what I will also say is, I actually am of the opinion, and this counts on them having some spending ability, and maybe they just don't have any. But I'm actually of the opinion that you should merge those two strategies. One, early on, if you have very little money to spend, like let's say, the offseason starts and you're like, we can sign a free agent hitter for $8 million at most, which ended up being Josh Bell.
Right.
We need 2 relievers, but we can only spend $6 million on them total. Yeah, you can wait until the end of the offseason and hope that a guy who wanted $7 million in December wants $3.5 million in February.
Mm-hmm.
But then you run into, well, why was this guy of not interest to anybody? I actually would like them to be very targeted early on and like identify guys that they feel like are undervalued and are higher upside, and offer them, figure out a guy who doesn't have a market at $4 million and offer them $4 million, and secure, they're not going to be at the top of their list, but secure guys that you're sort of being, I guess you're being active in choosing them. Do you know what I mean? Like, from your list, who do you feel like is actually undervalued, actually has upside, actually is a good forward-thinking investment, whereas they're just being so reactive or passive in their targeting, and that you can't help but get the leftovers at that point. And leftovers are fine, believe me. After Thanksgiving, everybody likes leftovers. But what I'm saying is, I would like to see, given the right circumstances, a merging of those two, where it's like, all right, off season's underway. Who are our like 2 or 3 guys that we just think are undervalued? Not because we think they're going to be all-stars, but because we're higher on them than everyone else. Let's try to get those guys. And if we have to give them an extra $800,000 or $1 million, like, to secure them, I actually think that is more beneficial, because you're still dealing with cheap guys because they're underrated, than just purely letting the market decide who you end up with. I mean, because if you let the market decide who you end up with, you don't have control over that a lot of the time.
I get your point. I will tell you, when I've talked to Twins officials about something like this, that the key is getting the other side to say yes early in the offseason sometimes is a challenge, right? Like, nobody really knows what they're worth. Harrison Bader isn't sure whether he's worth $13 million or $6.5 million when the offseason starts, right? And so,
but I'm talking about
you're
probably
talking
lower
about a totally different tier of player. I understand,
like Danny Coulomb, okay,
right.
who they ended up with for $3 million, which was a really good value right around later than this. Would it have killed them in November, to just give him $4 million and just sign him? Now it worked out for them, and I never get the sense that the $1 million saved here or the $1 million saved there ends up with significant additions. Whereas I guess at this point, I just think I would want to be more in control of my own free agent destiny a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know. It's, again, if they were winning games, this would be a discussion that no one would even care about, because it would be like, oh, they're brilliantly waiting to the end of the. And again, I'm not saying they've had a lot of hits doing that. Harrison Bader, very good one. But they've also had a lot of ones where you go, ooh, this guy's just cooked.
Right.
Like, this guy is just, no wonder the other 20.
Right from the very first offseason they had, where they had, who did they bring in?
Reed.
Yeah,
but that was early.
Lance
Lynn and Logan Morrison. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's, again, semantic. It's picking nits at a team that has put themselves in a position to have their nits picked. That sounded weirdly dirty as I said that, but I assure you it wasn't meant to be. Before we get into kind of,
let's take care of our own business side for a little bit while we're doing this.
We're focused on the business side, just like the Twins. We're gonna, in a minute, talk about, like, what are the remaining questions with 6 weeks until we're in Fort Myers and so are the Twins. But before that, let's talk a little bit about our presenting sponsor, Blackstack.
Black Stag Brewing. They're going to be sponsoring the Winter Meltdown. You
Yeah.
can put it on your calendar, by the way, January 24th. I think we'll announce that on Twins Daily, but I'll give you guys a little heads up. January 24th. They've sponsored the Winter Meltdown last year. Last year, you got to try out their local 755 New England IPA, their Slopes Pilsner, their Pohlads Pale Ale. It's even you don't have to come to the Winter Meltdown to try them anymore because now they are in liquor stores everywhere. You can find them all over Minnesota. You can also find them in Iowa, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, the whole thing. And you can also find them at your local liquor store or at their tap room, which is one of the largest tap rooms. It's the former Spam can factory, and if you go there, I'll give you a little hint, and you enjoy a beer and tap, and then take a four pack home with you. You can mention the code word Gleeman and the Geek. You'll get $2 off of that 4 pack. I'll also just call out, I think a lot of people pull back on their drinking in January. Uh, they also have a new non-alcoholic beer. Their Pilsner's called Slopes. Their non-alcoholic beer, Nopes, because they're very clever people. And that was recommended by Cooper's mom, Uber driver, who listens to Gleeman the Geek, and he suggested to her, "Hey, you got to let people know that they've got a great non-alcoholic beer because I
There you
can't
go.
drink, but I like drinking this stuff." So listen, they're really known well for their IPAs. They're one of the premier recognized beer makers in the state. We're lucky to have them. Go and give them some support. Go to their tap room, use Gleeman and the Geek, and get $2 off a 4 pack, or stop by your local liquor store and enjoy whichever ones you can find there. You will not go wrong.
Yeah, we got soon. We'll have some details, hopefully, about the Winter Meltdown, but it's trending in the right direction.
That's right.
Would you
Yes.
say that? Yeah.
Yes. Very, very, very excited about it.
We're excited about the theoretical guest and
Yes.
everything
Well,
else. I
I
don't
would
want
say,
to
I'd
say.
say more that guest is more than theoretical at this point. That
Yeah,
theoretic is
see, this
locked.
is
That guest is locked in.
they're locked in, huh?
Locked in.
Yeah, I've heard that before though.
Yes.
And then Carl Pavano almost died shoveling his driveway. Remember
That
that?
did happen one year, yeah. Yeah, that's when we had Mike
The
Pagliarulo and Tim Laudner, I think,
yeah.
ended up filling
The
it.
lengths people will go, even physical harm to themselves, to avoid going on a stage and talking to the two of us for a half hour in front of several hundred people.
I don't blame him.
It's incredible, really.
We
I
pick
go to those
nits. We've
lengths
already
too.
established that.
Yeah. Okay, so 6 weeks out. What did we say? February 12th? Is that what you told me was the first
I think that is
workout
correct.
day?
That's the Thursday, right? Yeah, February 12th is the Thursday because Valentine's Day is the 14th. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, spring training is just a month plus around the corner. So
Have you booked your place yet?
no, but I
Not
will.
yet. Okay. All right.
Um,
We are locked in for that as well. Twins Daily is locked in on that for 4 weeks of coverage. So
okay. How's the couch? Is it a nice couch that I
it's a
could
not
sleep
bad
on?
couch. Yeah, and it's a pullout. Yeah.
Is it? Would you say it's structurally sound?
Well,
As
I
a
haven't actually been into the place
okay.
yet, but I would imagine yes. The last similar one was. So,
I need it graded for like 800 pounds. Like,
what are you going to be doing on that couch?
oh, just sitting on it. Just sitting on it. It's been a tough month. I've been snacking. Yeah. So here, they're the same questions. I mean, the questions haven't really changed, but I thought as like a reset,
Sure.
maybe we can kind of reset what we think will actually happen or what are reasonable expectations and stuff relative to a month ago or whatever. But like you said, Josh Bell's in the mix now. Even that one is not a seamless addition, as we discussed at the time, because he's really more of a DH than a first baseman. You can
Right.
play him at first base, but you're not going to love it defensively. And also, he's going to give back some of the runs that he gains you as a lineup. He's going to give those back in the field, which is why you look at like his wins above replacement or whatever, and it's, pretty mediocre because
Right.
he's adding, 15 runs offensively compared to an average player, but he's giving back 5 or 10 runs defensively compared to an average first baseman. We discussed the idea of might they still be looking, in addition to Josh Bell, maybe someone that could play first base or maybe even first base and some corner outfield and slide him more into mostly DH, some first base instead of some mostly first base, some DH. I think that would make a difference, particularly for a team that was not good defensively
Yeah.
last year and has talked about wanting to get better defensively. It's going to be very difficult to get, you know, not bad defensively if the infield around the horn is, you know, Josh Bell, Luke Keeschel, Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis. That's going to be one of the worst defensive infields if that's the quartet that they put out there all the time. I don't really expect that to happen, though, in terms of like bringing in another bat. I mean, it wouldn't shock me a month from now if they sign, you know, a Donovan Solano type for $2 million or something to be kind of a part-time player. You know, I'll keep saying they could use a right-handed hitting corner outfielder because I say that every year for 20 years. Right. They could use a right-handed hitting first baseman if they wanted to move Bell to DH and platoon the left-handed hitting Cody Clemens with some sort of right-handed hitting cheap first baseman. I mean, those, I'm not saying I don't expect that to happen, but I guess like the next step up from that, like the Rhys Hoskins level, or the Nathaniel Lowe level, or the, you know, some of the other names that we discussed along with Josh Bell before they signed Josh Bell a couple weeks ago. I guess I'm skeptical of that. I mean, I think they could use that, absolutely. I think that should be something they are trying to make happen. We've just gotten no sense from a payroll or spending ability standpoint that they have another $6 million, $8 million, $10 million. I mean, I think we kind of feel like maybe they have that amount of money, but that's it. And if that's it, you have to address the bullpen with that money, I think. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I think you're right. I'll pair this with, I think, another question about the offseason is Trevor Larnach going to be on this roster? Right. I don't know if that was one of the questions you had out there, but that's one of the questions I've got. And my sense right now is the plan is, you know, lacking any, you know, major opportunities coming along, or lacking any you know, a blow us away offer on Trevor Larnach, that the plan is Trevor Larnach is the plan, right? He's going to be the plan at DH for a good chunk of it, et cetera, right? That's going to be what's going to end up, it's going to end up being. So,
which, by the way, that I don't love that, obviously.
Right.
But that's how they used him last year. I don't think it's like the end of the world. He's an okay hitter. It's fine. But what that does, it leaves them extremely left-handed again.
Yes.
Makes them very susceptible to left-handed starting pitching because, again, they refuse to add these right-handed hitters that I always suggest every year. But then what it also does, that locks Josh Bell in as your main first baseman, which, like I just said, is going to be bad at first base. I mean, he's just not a good defensive player. And it's going to make the infield as a whole not good. But then it also makes it difficult to improve significantly defensively in the outfield. Because if Larnach is at DH and you're not making significant trades, that means Matt Wallner's starting in right field, and we've seen he's not very good. And it means, you know, left field is a spot that they probably expect to be better, but the truth is, for the first half of last year, that was Harrison Bader, and it couldn't have been better defensively in left field. And, you know, I know they think Alan Roden is a better defender than the Larnach-Wallner types, and I think so too.
But he ain't better than Bader.
Right, he's not even close to as good as Bader. I mean, he's just going to be an okay left fielder. And, you know, Austin Martin will see time out there. And, again, he's a big improvement over Larnach-Wallner. But the truth is, you know, for the first even like 2/3 of last season, they were playing Bader and Buxton together almost every game.
Yes.
And that was like the one pocket of the team where they were great defensively.
Yes.
And if you go look at like their overall defensive numbers as a team last year, they were horrific. Like they were bottom of the barrel, negative, you know, double-digit runs. And that's with Buxton and Bader playing, you know, 80 starts together in left field, center field. And so this year...
And Correa at shortstop.
Correa at shortstop. I didn't...
He wasn't great, but he was better than Lee. So
see, I mean, maybe, but I don't think that was like a big drop-off. I also thought by the end, I thought Correa got worse, like noticeably worse as the season went on last year.
Okay.
Because at the beginning of the year, and the year before that, he had been solid.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, well, he's healthier now. And I felt like, as someone who has a spinal issue and is always limping around, he looked to me like somebody who has a sore back all the time. Because he would not do what your little league coaches teach you to do on day one, which is get down in front of the ball, get your glove, you know, directly, you know, you're vacuuming up the ball, basically, is what my coach used to tell me. And I'm not trying to tell Carlos Correa how to play shortstop by any means. But he would sort of circle the ball all the time and just sort of try to swipe up with his glove. And to me, that seemed like, and maybe I'm just way off here, but I did ask him about this once, and he joked that he's been lifting his son a lot, his infant son.
All right.
But he seemed to me like a guy who couldn't play shortstop the way he wanted to play shortstop, like from a fundamental level. Now, again, he wasn't terrible, but by the end, there were like a handful of plays, I would say his last like 6 weeks with the team, where it was like, oh, wow, I haven't seen that. And I'm not saying Brooks Lee was amazing either, but I thought it was similar. But this is just a long way of saying it's they have talked so much last season during the season. In August and September, they were almost touting something that hadn't really happened in terms of more speed, more defense.
Yeah.
And then going into this offseason, that was seemingly, they talked about it being a priority. They've added, Alex,
Right.
they've added a good defensive backup catcher, but he's replacing Vasquez, who was a pretty good defensive backup catcher.
Right.
The most significant move they've added to the lineup is one of the worst defensive players in all of baseball,
Right.
and one of the slowest players in all of baseball, in Josh Bell. And not only is he not sort of fitting the description of what you had talked about improving, his presence has a kind of domino effect at DH for the rest of the infield, for the corner outfield. And all three of those kind of trickle down effects from him are also pointing to no improvement or perhaps even worse defense. So I don't know how that.
And on top of that, they retained Larnick in arbitration when it wasn't totally clear that they needed to do that either. And that's another example of it. So yeah, unless they take a look, it's possible. I mean, there's enough of the names that we kind of talked about still out there, that one of these guys could fall into is Paul Goldschmidt available for $4 million on February 2nd?
Right.
Could I see them saying, you know what? Let's go that way instead of the Larnick way and see what happens.
Right.
And
that is how I would approach it.
And then trading Larnick for whatever, like just to get the $4 million off the books, basically, right? Because not only is Larnick a payroll, not only would that free up some payroll, it also just frees up the roster spot. Like right now, I don't know how you fit both Larnick and another signee on this roster, right? You can't, unless you're going to go to 13 pitchers.
That is what I assumed they would do, like going into the offseason.
Right.
I assumed Larnick would already be gone, and like you're talking about, it frees up $4 million, which you might not be able to get a guy you're excited about for $4 million, but you might be able to get him for $6 million, and you need that $4 million to get to $6 million and still have some money left over for the bullpen. But then the other thing is, like, just from a functionality standpoint, Larnick is not very functional on any roster. He can play the corner outfield, but he's not good at it defensively. And they believe, and I think there's evidence of this, that even just playing left field 5 times a week, he wears down, he gets hurt, and that's why they played him at DH last year. It was a combo. They don't think he's good defensively, and then they just wanted him to be healthy. And that was as healthy as he's been, but he just didn't hit enough for it to matter. And so not only could you use the money to kind of accomplish what we're talking about, and like you said, just trade him for whatever you can trade him, but from a functionality standpoint, if you trade Larnick just to be a salary dump, let's say, and you take the $4 million, you add a couple million to it, and you sign Rhys Hoskins or something. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't think it is. There's much more functionality. It's not like the first baseman is a great defender, but you can get someone who's above average or average, at least defensively, at first base. That in turn moves Josh Bell from DH, where his defense doesn't hurt you, and it opens up the corner outfield a little bit, so that you don't have Wallner and Larnick in terms of two lumbering, very similar stylistic guys. But again, I thought that was going to happen. That is certainly how I would have approached things. I mean, I would have just non-tendered.
But the time for that to happen was probably before arbitration, right?
Who knows? But yeah, that would have been my assumption.
And when you're talking, to go back to the previous discussion, when you're talking about these guys seem to be afraid to trade away core guys in the way they did, say, Luis Arias way back in the day, right? I mean, that every year it seems like we've got one person who's kind of a core player that we offer arbitration to, that we're like, could go either way on offering him arbitration or so on, and every year that player ends up being on the roster when pitchers and catchers report.
Now, in fairness, I think that's a good point. Luis Arias, I think you could have argued at the time, and you certainly can argue in retrospect, his value was at an all-time high.
Right. No, they did a great job on that one.
Now, you might say, well, they should do that again. Nobody's value
Is it all-time high? Right.
is at an all-time high. In fact, most of these guys' value is, if not at an all-time low, certainly near
Keishel.
the all-time low. Yeah,
Keishel's
Keisha,
an
right.
all-time- yeah,
Right.
that's right.
But like Larnick and Wallner and Royce
Right.
Lewis and,
That's right.
on and on, these guys' value has cratered. I mean, you even toss in like Julian or Jose Miranda, who I think
Right,
is signed
yes.
with the Padres now.
Oh, did he? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he did.
Minor league deal, I
He
think.
did.
I don't know if
He
that's
signed
been
with the
announced.
Padres. That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one thing to go, well, why haven't they traded any core guys? Well, yeah, the time to do that would have been last offseason or even before that, which I've made the argument they should have done that, but they didn't. The other big question, and I actually do think they will answer this question, is the bullpen, which we've talked a little bit about already. But like they've essentially done nothing. They made a minor trade for Eric Orzi from the Rays, who I actually think has some, he can be a middle reliever. He's fine. Good track record at AAA. Had some success with the Rays in the majors for like 25, 30 innings last year. So I think that was a fine move just to add some depth, middle relief depth. That's the type of move they should have made. But I still feel like, and they've seemingly talked pretty openly about this also being their viewpoint, is they need, I would say, two relievers added to this bullpen who are better than the guys they have.
Sure.
And I guess in the case of like Cole Sands, I'm not necessarily saying they need to add guys who are significantly better or have more upside than Cole Sands, but like better than Cole Sands was last season, let's say.
Right. Yes.
And the holdovers, Cole Sands, Cody Funderburk, Justin Topa, add Eric Orzi to that group.
Yeah.
The Pearson Oles, the Travis Adams types. Like, yeah, could they build a bullpen and maybe convert one of these starters to relief and all that? I mean, you can always build a bullpen. It's not like they're going to be. It's not like trying to fill backup shortstop or backup catcher where you like literally need a guy capable of doing it. Any pitcher can be a reliever, so you can fill the bullpen. But the question is like to have a functional, average-ish major league bullpen over the course of 6 months, particularly in the way that they lean on the bullpen. In terms of eating a lot of innings and how they like to manage the bullpen. Maybe that'll change a little bit. Who knows? Under Derek Shelton, I doubt it. You cannot have your top three be Cole Sands, Justin Topa, and Cody Funderburk. I mean, you just cannot. And I know they would probably say, well, by midseason, we're hoping that Connor Prelip or Marco Raya or one of the starters. I don't even know, like Zebby Matthews or David Fester or something like that, can be better. Well, yeah, I believe that. What about April, May, and June? Like,
Right, yeah.
this thing might be over by June if you don't have a decent bullpen. And so my assumption has been that similar to how we assumed they had to bring in at least one bat, and they did that in Josh Bell, to me, you got to bring in minimally one veteran reliever.
Well, I would say, yeah. I think two.
I would,
right?
yeah. I mean, to me, I would say three, but I've kind of given up hope of that
Okay.
from a spending standpoint. But two. Now, it's interesting because, the relief market is always an extremely deep pool
Right.
because anybody can be a reliever. You're getting guys who are flash in the pans. You're getting guys like Edwin Diaz who have been amazing for a decade. You're getting converted starters. You're getting injured guys who went to there's always tons of them, and teams cut bait on relievers pretty quickly, Twins included. And so every offseason, there's dozens of quality major league relievers. So in one sense, it makes more sense than in that pursuit than almost anything else to do what they often do is wait it out.
Sure.
See, especially when you might only have $7 million to get two spots filled or something like that, which we're kind of speculating the Twins are at. On the other hand, reliever is such that if most of the league thinks a guy's done, they don't bounce back from that a lot. Like relievers very rarely are like, oh, was trending in the wrong direction and now he's great again.
Yeah.
It's like we talk about, even good relievers burn bright and kind of fade away pretty quickly.
Right. It's true.
They're going max effort all the time. A lot of them have had injury histories in the past. The usage, while it's less in terms of innings, you're pitching 70 times a year, and I think that wears people down. Kind of high leverage, having to get yourself up for all this. And so that is a spot where, like I talked about a little bit ago, is like I would have liked to see them make a real targeted pickup of a reliever they loved in terms of an upside play. And maybe that guy
Right.
comes with more risk. Maybe that guy doesn't have a 5-year track record of success, but you cannot tell me that they don't, at the beginning of the offseason, they didn't have a couple names at the top of the whiteboard saying, we think these are higher upside relief arms, even if it's AAA guys who are, whatever. I would have liked to see them kind of secure that. And I guess you could argue that Orzi to some extent was that the trade they made for him.
Sure.
But I would like to see them do that and then wait out the rest of the market and try to scoop up one or two decent guys, because now it's like, yeah, are there plenty of relievers? Yeah, I mean, there are always going to be plenty of relievers. There will be guys unsigned in February or even March where it's like, okay, this guy on a 3-year or a $3 million deal would make sense. But I looked last night at I actually think the relief market has moved pretty quickly compared to a lot of off seasons.
Yeah.
And I looked, so there's a couple ways you can look at it. Obviously, you can look at like people's rankings. Fangraphs, you can rank by projected 2026 WAR for free agents. So if you rank all the free agent relievers in this class, led by like Edwin Diaz, etc., by projected 2026 WAR, and this isn't perfect, but it'll give you a sense of who has upside. The top 13 have all signed already.
Who's 14?
And 20 out of the top 25 have signed.
Yeah.
And again, like you're saying, the 14th best guy, Sir Anthony Dominguez, is the 14th best guy. Yeah. Which you know him from the Phillies, because Chris is a Phillies fan. Everybody probably watched him pitch in the Blue Jays bullpen. On the one hand, they made it to the World Series. On the other hand, he didn't always help that much. But he's certainly a high upside arm. He keeps bouncing around because people go, well, he throws 100, but he walks everybody and he gives up bad homers.
He can be really inconsistent, right?
Right. He's a good example of kind of what I'm getting at is, if you let the market decide who's left for you, what you get is, okay, well, the top 13 guys have already signed. Right. Who's 14th? Okay, Sir Anthony Dominguez, or go a little further, David Robertson, who's like 41 but continues to be pretty good. Tyler Kinley, who's actually a former Twins Rule 5 pick, who's had a decent career. Pierce Johnson, who actually listed a couple months ago as a possible target. And then, from the left side, you got the Danny Coulombe types, Andrew Chafin, old friend Taylor Rogers, that type of guy. If you let me pick two of those guys for $7 million or something, I'd say, okay, that checks the box, whatever. But the problem is, this is second or third tier already. I would say this is probably third tier.
I mean,
and
what the highest remaining reliever of the guys that are still on the free agent market as relievers? What's the most any of them get paid now this year? Does any of them make more than $7 million?
I'll say one or two, though, just because, who knows. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, you're now in the $5 million range, probably, for mostly, or less, obviously.
Yeah, I think so.
They would probably tell you, we weren't going to sign anybody for more than that anyway, so it didn't matter when we tried to do it. And maybe that's fair. And again, that's just ownership's fault. That's not the front office is doing. But, you look at that list, and yeah, are there still a dozen or so relievers that I wouldn't hate seeing in a setup role for the 2026 Minnesota Twins? Yeah. There's almost no one I'd be excited about in that role. And even more than that, there's no one I feel like would be a good closer. There's no one I feel like would be an above average setup man. You're now already in the range, the top 13 have signed, 20 of the top 25 have signed. You're now in the range where it's like, okay, that guy wouldn't be a bad seventh inning guy, which is fine if you're just trying to fill one spot in an otherwise good bullpen. Right. If they still had Duran and Jax and Louis Varland, then it's like, okay, yeah, I could see, Pierce Johnson for $4 million slide into that sixth inning role. Maybe he replaces Brock Stewart or something like that. But they just need so much more help than that.
Yes.
In terms of quantity and quality. And maybe this was just a pipe dream all along. I really had hoped that they would be more in the mix for like the Kenley Jansen type, $8 to $10 million. It's clear they haven't been linked. I haven't heard from anyone. Did Jansen sign? Yeah, $10 million with the Tigers.
Okay, yeah.
So they'll see plenty of them.
Sure.
And I don't blame them for choosing the Tigers over the Twins, obviously. But there's no indication that the Twins were even in the mix for a lot of these guys. So yes, there are good quality relievers left. And they are in the Twins, self-inflicted.
We're getting to the time of the year when the Twins would be able to start forwarding these
Right.
guys. Correct.
But
Yes.
if 5 more of these guys sign, then
Right.
you are truly just picking over the leftovers.
Right,
And I don't know, that to me that would be disappointing, even though I felt like I came into the offseason from a bullpen standpoint with pretty low expectations. My expectations were like spend 12 million on two okay relievers. And instead now it might be spend 6 million total on two,
Right.
okay-ish
Right.
relievers. And yeah, I don't, this is part of why I'm much more pessimistic. Part of it is my brain chemistry and upbringing. But
Yeah.
but
Part
part of it
is
is
that you followed the Twins for 25 years.
fair point too. That has altered my brain chemistry undoubtedly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As a child, I was so optimistic and I loved everyone. And then I started watching the Minnesota Twins
Wanted to go
in
out all
the
the time. Yeah.
in the mid '90s into the early 2000s, and then
Yeah.
it was like I don't want to have any friends. I want to turn all the lights off. Um, I went out last night, John. You wouldn't even know how social I'm being lately.
Where did you go last night?
Well, I don't want to give away all my
All
secrets.
right. Okay. All right. Yeah. And you threw a party last weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look at you.
I'm like a wild
New
and crazy
year, new
guy.
Gleeman.
That's right. No, what it is Becky told me I have to go out 3 times in 2026. So I'm trying to get them all the
Trying to
first
front
week.
load them? Yeah, that's right.
Trying to front load those salaries so we could get below the luxury tax for
That's
going
it.
out. So yeah, that's kind of how I view the bullpen. Realistically, if they're going to sign 2, I'd say sign a lefty and a righty.
Right.
I wouldn't have a problem with Coulomb back on a 1-year deal for $3 million again. Taylor Rogers, I wouldn't have a problem with.
Yeah.
I actually think Rogers has probably more upside than Coulomb, but also has been more up and down.
We missed out on Thielbar, right? Thielbar
Yeah,
signed.
Thielbar got $4 million, I think, from the Cubs, so good for him.
Good for him.
At this point, he might be too rich to ever come on the podcast. I told people that he was the one we just never got. I'd said that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I
In
think
the
so, yes.
in
We
the
definitely talked about him almost being on the podcast.
Yeah. Maybe he'll go on Cubs territory or whatever the hell it is.
There you go, there you go.
He'll be a good guest. Maybe in retirement we'll have him on. Although the way he's going, he might not be retired for a
You're
while.
right.
But so yeah, I mean, bullpen standpoint, give me Coulomb or Rogers as a lefty. Righties are trickier because, like, in my mind, I had wanted a righty who could really be kind of the anchor of an okay bullpen, a Kenley Jansen type
Yes.
of guy. And I just don't see that in any. I mean, David Robertson was once that guy.
Yes.
But he's 42. And also, he has sat out the first couple months of seasons and then joined contenders.
Right.
So I don't know that he's going to be want to pitch for the Minnesota Twins. But yeah, I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez and Pierce John. These are okay relievers and they do have some upside. They're just not my idea of like, okay, slot him in the number 1 spot, slot, Colson. But clearly that's where this is headed. I mean, now
Right.
they could make a trade, and we focus a lot on free agency versus trades just because there are infinite trade possibilities.
Sure. Right.
And so it doesn't make that much sense to be like, why don't they go trade for this specific
And I mean,
reliever?
we are approaching the time of year where we have seen them do that. Now, usually it's been for a starting pitcher, like with Kenta
Right.
Maeda or Jake Odorizzi or players like that. But we haven't really seen them go out and make a trade for a reliever, in part because I think they feel like relievers are overvalued. But
Right. Yeah. Well, and then this brings me to my third and final question here of remaining questions for the offseason. On the trade front, I mean, we just talked about bringing someone in via trade, but let's talk about exiting guys. I mean, we talked about Larnach as a possible trade candidate still at this point. I think it might make sense for like Bailey Ober to be a trade candidate. However, Bailey Ober's value is at an all-time low.
right.
But that's a move that would save $5 million and maybe could bring you in something else. He's still got 2 years of team control. I know in the past, I've personally talked to people who work for front offices that have tried and failed to acquire Bailey Ober. But that was when he was thriving. That was when he appeared to be ascending, healthy, all that. All those things are very much in question. But I guess he would be the most logical, if what they said about wanting to hang on to Lopez and Ryan is accurate. Ober would be the most logical. Well, he's the last remaining veteran of like, we have enough young guys to fill 3 rotation spots or 6 rotation spots, however you want to view it, after Lopez and Ryan. Do we still need Bailey Ober? But I just don't know what Bailey Ober's market would be at this point. I mean, I'm extraordinarily skeptical
Right.
of Bailey Ober, not because I'm not a believer. I mean, nobody has been a bigger believer in Bailey Ober going back to when he was a prospect. His health situation just worries me a great deal. When there aren't, like sort of solid answers to health questions that dog someone for an entire season, and at the end it's just like, well, we're hoping rest will do it. I mean, he
Yeah.
rested for 6 weeks during the season, and it was still kind of a mess. So he's a trade candidate, and I guess it's a little similar to Larnick in that I wouldn't expect them to get much. I would expect Ober to have more trade value than Larnick, but it would be more about clearing a rotation spot and clearing 4 or 5 million, similar to how trading Larnick would be about clearing a lineup spot and a
Right.
roster spot and 4 million. I mean, if you trade both those guys for whatever you can get, you've cleared $8 or $9 million. Would that allow you to bring in a bat and get two relievers?
Sure.
Or is that, would that allow you to just pocket the money and
Yeah. Right.
whatever? So that's my remaining question. And obviously my tune on Lopez Ryan has changed because it seems like the Twins tune has changed on that
Yes.
since the beginning of the offseason. I'm not convinced it's impossible that one or both of those guys get traded, but you would hope it would be more of a baseball trade
Right.
than a rebuild trade. I mean, ultimately that's semantic too, probably. But I guess I'm now operating on the assumption that they will be in the opening day rotation just because the Twins have told people that.
Yes.
Um,
I agree. I mean, and I think if they do trade somebody like that, it's going to be for help this upcoming year as much as, help in the future, or at least somebody, triple A level,
Right.
high minors type thing that, but I don't anticipate that. I think we're at the point now where they would have to get an offer that we would be like, great trade, as opposed to ugh, are we doing this just to free up, $8 million or whatever?
Well, and I mean,
So,
this is kind of what we discussed at the beginning of the offseason, but like if you trade Lopez and Ryan, I wouldn't even care about Josh Bell or
right.
relievers
Yeah, it's
because at
true.
that
Right.
point it's like,
Yes.
who
Right.
cares? I mean, what's the difference? I will say that Ken Rosenthal a few days ago reported that the Twins are telling other teams, and he's getting this from other teams, obviously, that they aren't shopping Ryan. Like other
Okay.
teams probably continue to call on Ryan or other players, and Rosenthal heard from several other teams that are like the Twins are definitely giving off vibes that they're not looking to trade him. Again, there's a difference between shopping, looking, all that, and being
Sure.
open
Right.
to it.
Right.
I'm sure they're not hanging up when they're being called, but
Sure. Of course.
that's my assumption at this point. So in terms of trades, I mean, I don't know. Like you said, I guess the most obvious thing they could trade for is just a good reliever, but they really haven't done that very often.
No.
And trade for good relievers. I mean, they've traded reliever for reliever, Taylor Rogers for Emilio Pagan,
Or,
and stuff
or
like
they've
that.
gone and picked up like a guy on the side here, like we just did with
Right.
Orsi. Right. Like,
Yeah, I mean more of like a guy
Right.
making 8 million,
Right.
been a good setup man for 5 years, that type of thing. So yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, if we're putting, we like to do over unders here, but if you're putting over unders on free agent signings, major league contracts, guaranteed
Mhm.
contracts, or trades for guys who are clearly going to be on the opening day roster, what is your over under on that? From this point forward, not including the guys they've already
I mean,
added.
it's going to be two, but I don't know whether, I mean, I think it's going to be two. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think there's even an over under possibility really.
Right.
I mean, I guess I would set it at 2.5, but take the under, and I don't know anybody that would take the over. But if I set it at 1.5, I think I'd have to take the over. Like
Yeah, I mean, for the over to happen at 2.5, you're looking definitely at a Larnick trade.
sure, right,
You trade Larnick either for a reliever or you trade Larnick, you bring in a new bat, so there's
right.
one, and then you use the money to sign a reliever. There's two.
I mean, I think that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, something like that. Or same thing with Bailey Ober, obviously.
and I don't
Similar.
see that happening. And I would say it's going to be more than 1.5 because I mean, I do think they'll bring in at least one reliever,
Yeah.
a major league reliever, and I think they're going to bring in two. Like
I mean, this is a great example of something we've talked about for 15 years on the show, which is what could they do? What should they do? What
sure,
will they do?
right, yeah,
What could they do? We've laid out. they could sign 3 relievers.
Yeah.
What should they do? I would say minimally 2 and probably 3. It seems like you're on the same page for that. What will they do?
Right.
I've given up kind of trying to figure that out, or at least I've given up trying to figure that out in a way that kind of gives them any grace, or assumes that they will do what they should or what people want. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be shocked if they just signed some guy for 2 million and called it a day on the
Yes.
bullpen. I think that would be a tremendous mistake. I think that will end with trading a bunch of guys again at the trade deadline because your bullpen was terrible and your offense wasn't that good for the first half. But again, we're not even certain they have $10 million to spend. I mean,
Yeah,
we
I was
think
going to
that's
ask you, like, if I gave you $8.5 million that they're going to spend on relievers this offseason
right.
going forward, where would you take that?
You mean as an over on?
Yeah.
I would take the under on that, probably.
If I gave you 6.5, would you take the over? Under?
That's probably. I would say 6. I mean,
How low
2
do I have to
million,
get you to take the over? I guess is my
maybe
question.
5.5, 6 million. I mean,
Yeah, right. I mean, I
6
wouldn't be shocked
million.
by that. I could see them right now. Like we've kind of gotten into the range where we sort of expect something to happen. I could see them bringing in 2 $4 million relievers, or 2 $6 million, or two $5 million relievers, and clearing that 8.5.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what they should do at this point. I thought they should have spent about 12 million on 2 relievers, get a $8 to $10 million one and a
Yeah.
$2 to $4 million one, something like that.
Hey, yeah. I mean,
Before,
since we're on the topic of more or less.
yeah,
Well,
okay.
let's talk about our next sponsor. Keeping this episode free, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a great example of what we are just talking about, which is you can try to guess what is going to be going on, or use your inherent sports knowledge to kind of and pick your sport. By the way, like they're all active right now. You got college football, you've got not baseball, but you've got basketball, you've got hockey, and pro football, obviously, for at least another week. And then we've got the playoffs coming up here. You might take a look at, I just saw Justin Jefferson's number on Prize Picks at 64.5 receiving yards. You think he's going to get more or less than that? If you've got a strong feeling on that, or on, 3 other ones, you build a lineup. You take each of those players, you build a lineup of those 3 folks, say whether or not they're going to get more than or less than the numbers that they have out there. You take some of the money from your account and you put that money on there, and then you get to see whether or not you're right. And in fact, now you even got a thing right now where they've got early payouts. So if your player gets off to a hot start in the first half, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. They've got stuff like that, and they've also got social features. You can share your Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. All kinds of great features that they've got built into this game that you play. And to play it, you've got to download an app. You don't go to a website. You download an app. So you download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Gleeman, and you're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So you play a lineup for $5. They put $50 into your account to play on lineups. That's code Gleeman to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
Okay. We mostly covered all the Pohlad related stuff last time, and I don't need to get Rosie going. They don't need to get Gleeman going on this topic. Lord knows we could go one episode without
We'll see what happens now.
ranting about the
we're in
Pohlads.
wait and see mode, and I think we both know what's going to happen, but whatever.
You
It
mean in
is
terms
what
of
it is.
me getting angry?
No,
We're in wait and
yes,
see.
yeah. I think we know what the Pohlads are going to do, and I think we know
Yeah.
how we're going to react. Yes.
The one thing I wanted to talk about real quick that we actually covered on the Patreon side, is kind of the history repeating itself element of the Pohlads.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So, their talking point for a while now, but emphasized by Tom Pohlad a couple weeks ago at his press conference was, we're losing an incredible amount of money, $500 million they're claiming to be in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they claim, hey, we've been spending above our revenue for years, and that's how we got $500 million in debt, and we're no longer interested in doing that. So we're cutting payroll, and it was 160, then it was 130, now it's under 100 right now. We think it's going to be 110, maybe something like that. So that sucks. what's interesting though is it's almost identical in terms of like the playbook being run, the quotes being said, the claims being made as essentially 3 decades ago, the off season between 98 and 99. And so what was that 28 years ago.
Yes.
And there's a Twitter account called Winnesota, Whenesota, Winnesota. And he does like on this day in,
Right.
Minnesota sports history. So he went back through the Star Tribune archives and found like Christmas week 1998. So again, basically 28 years ago. And they were essentially saying the identical stuff with the two main differences. And I'm going to read you some of these quotes from the Star Tribune because the Athletic didn't exist back then, so I can't read you the Athletic. So the two big differences that you will note here as I read this, one, it's Jim Pohlad saying all of these things,
Right.
who is the uncle of Joe and now Tom Pohlad. And the other thing that is different is in 1998, 1999, the Twins were saying all this about losing money and talking about slashing payroll with the added component of, hey, if we keep losing money, we'll just move the team. Or
Right.
if we don't get a new ballpark,
Right. That's right.
we'll just move the team. And in fact, 3 years later, they agreed to be contracted for $250 million, and that, yeah. It's amazing how that doesn't stick in the minds of everyone. Do you know what I
Yes,
mean?
right. That's right.
To me, once you attempt to murder the franchise,
Yes.
that's a hard stink to wear off. And I know that there are many Twins
Somebody
fans.
said that to me at the general manager or at the winter meetings. Like somebody said, "Oh, that's right. You guys still have the owners that tried to kill your team.
Yeah.
That tried to contract the team."
By the way, didn't try, agreed to do it.
Yes, right.
Agreed
Yeah,
to
that's
take
right.
a payment
That's
and
right.
only
went
a court.
to court to be able to do it.
Right. It is amazing
Right.
that even if you could get that stink off in the minds of 20% of your fan base, that's amazing to me. But
Right,
anyway,
that's
that's
right, right.
that's a side. So you don't have the threat of a ballpark or a move or a contraction now, thankfully. And it's Tom Pohlad saying this stuff instead of Jim Pohlad. But let me just read you a couple of these quotes and just think to yourself how similar these talking points or these claims and these quotes are to what we discussed and wrote about, 10 days ago or whatever from the Tom Pohlad press conference. So here's from the Star Tribune, December-ish 1998. The one quote, well, the headline is Bargain Basement Baseball. Good job by the headline writers there. And then here, I'll just read this. It's a short thing. Quote, "We're open to suggestions." That was one of the first sentences uttered by Jim Pohlad on Wednesday when he and Twins president Jerry Bell revealed the short-term plans for operating the Twins. Pohlad, the eldest son of team owner Carl Pohlad, revealed that the team will operate on a player payroll of as little as $10 million for the 1999 season, making the Twins Major League Baseball's lowest paid team. Saying the team has lost about $60 million over the past 5 years, Jim Pohlad said his father will keep the team in Minnesota only if he is able to avoid operating losses. Quote, "Keeping the team here is very important to me," Jim Pohlad said. He said that after all his father has accomplished, he didn't want him to be remembered for the team leaving town. And then there's other articles on the Strib front page about the ballpark aspect and all that stuff. But
Well, it would be fun. Would be fun to get the transcript of that if we can find somebody who has the transcript from that from way back when, and then
Now-
and pick quotes
Yeah.
from both that one and the
That's a good idea, John.
and the Tom Pohlad one,
Ooh.
and see if we can say which one was happened in 1998 and which one happened in 2025.
Here's what I'll say. Royce has the main column in the Strib on this particular day.
Okay.
So it's possible he has like a handwritten notebook full of these quotes from that. But if we're going to try to get a transcript from 1998, you're going to need the beat writer. And unfortunately, the beat writer at the time was Jim Suhan.
Yes.
So I'm going to leave it to you to try to get those that
try to get
help
that
from
transcript.
Jim Suhan. Don't mention you're going to use it for the podcast,
Sure,
maybe, but
yeah,
I'll leave that up to you. But and I could read a lot more. There's other stuff here too. The front page of the sports section that day in the Star Trib had like 4 different articles. But it's remarkable to me, not in the sense that I'm shocked, but in the sense like almost from their point of view, I wonder like how much they even realize the extent to which they're just literally doing the same thing
Right. Yeah.
30 years later, to the point that like you're joking about, like the quotes are interchangeable, the claims are interchangeable, except for this, obviously over the course of 3 decades, the scale of the money involved has changed.
Right.
But we talked about on the Patreon, the actual relative comparison between their payroll and the average payroll in Major League Baseball, or even the highest payroll, which was like the Yankees back then. Now
Right.
it's the Dodgers. It's very similar. They're like 2.5 times their payroll is the highest payroll. All this stuff, and like they're talking about losing $60 million over the course of 5 years, where now they're talking about losing $500 million.
Right.
I mean, the scale of this thing has just increased tenfold or whatever. But it is amazing to me that they just trot out a different Pohlad, have him say the same exact stuff.
Next
Everybody
generation.
writes.
Yeah.
Everybody writes and talks about the same exact stuff. We weren't around. I was 15. I wasn't doing this back then. And then they just, I don't know. Yeah, right.
I mean, I would also say, I mean, to that point, I wonder if we could get a transcript of Calvin Griffith talking in 1968 about the same, or certainly in 1970s. I know we heard the same press conference over.
Some of his transcripts we might not want to play on the podcast.
No, we might want to be a little careful about which is his.
People should look up Calvin
Lions
Griffith.
Club.
Yeah, Lions Cub Rod Carew. Look that up. It's I wrote about it in my book. You could read it there too. But yeah, and I mean, again, am I surprised that the Pohlads are behaving in this way? God, no. I mean, if you're surprised by this, you either got dropped on this planet yesterday or you're just not been paying attention. But it's not even, I'm trying to think of the best word. It's not like the gall of it, because I think from their perspective, they don't view it that way. Like, but from a fan perspective or from a media perspective, it's like, oh yeah, you guys are losing money again, huh? Yeah, okay. Hundreds of millions this time instead of tens of millions this time, and now it's the 3rd generation instead of the 2nd generation. You can't do the ballpark move contraction threat, hopefully. But oh yeah, you got to slash payroll again. Huh? Got to be one of the lowest payrolls again. Why do you still own the team? Why from 1998 with the contraction, with the shedding of payroll? Why only somebody was willing to buy the team from you? Yeah. If only you could sell it for $1 billion. It's almost like we're watching the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, all-time great movie. It's a tremendous movie, sort of a Christmas movie too, right? I think. Except the difference is
Groundhog Day, so it's February.
You're right. Smart. I was just thinking winter.
It's a holiday movie, I guess.
What was leading up to Groundhog Day? So, but here's the difference.
It's a Pitchers and Catchers Report movie, kind of.
Thank you. It's like Groundhog Day, except if every day the same song woke him up, and then he had the choice to just go back to sleep.
Right.
But the Pohlads are making it Groundhog Day 30 years consecutively, and as you said, even before that, with the people who sold them the team. And it's just, that's where I keep coming back to, is like, if this is such a horrible money-losing business in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s, and now in the 2020s, and you guys are hundreds of millions of dollars of debt to the point that you're bringing in and you're selling off pieces of the team, and you're hated by the community, and you're complaining about the media coverage, everybody's so mean to you, and you're pushing out your own family member because you're making him the scapegoat and Joe Pohlad for it. Why just not own the thing anymore? Like, why?
Yes.
And I know this is not a unique thought among Twins fans, but like, how many decades do they want to run this same playbook before everyone just goes, why?
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't court ordered.
Yes.
It's not like Carl Pohlad did something really bad one year in the 80s and they were like, well, you've been sentenced to own the team no matter what for the next 100 years. It's like, take your $1.5 billion, cut the $100 million checks to everyone, and just let some other billionaire run this thing. And that, when you see it repeated decade after decade, by the way, I failed at not getting worked up about this. When you see it repeated decade after decade, that is what my mind goes to, is like, is there something I'm missing here? Why they would put themselves through this with what they're claiming in terms of losses, in terms of hatred from the fan base, but then why are you putting the team itself and the community of people who love the team through this. And I think the Occam's razor thing is that this thing appreciates to such a degree that the reality is, from a business
Right.
standpoint,
Yes,
they
sir.
can claim to be losing money on a yearly or even 5-year span, 10-year span basis. But the reality is, Carl Pohlad bought this thing for 44 million in the 80s, and they would have no problem selling it for 1.5 billion today. And that's an incredible return. I know people go, well, it's the same as if they had put it in the S&P for 40 years. Well, yeah, you know that now. You
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
know that
Right.
in
Yes.
1984. So I think that is the Occam's razor of this, which is like, even if you believe the full extent of their claims of losing 500 million, of which I'm very skeptical in terms of where those losses came from, but
Right.
even if you believe that, they're still going to profit, 1,000 million
Right.
when they send it, instead of 500 million if you're putting it in idiot terms,
Sure.
which helps for me. And so that's the thing. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, I know you've talked to people since the press conference. I've tried to dig around a little bit from an ownership standpoint since the press conference. Tell me if you get the same feeling, but it's, you mentioned this actually the night we did the show, but it's increasingly clear to me that Joe Pohlad was legitimately pushed out. Like,
Oh, I mean, I think he tried to make that as clear as he could. Tom basically
right.
tried to make that as clear as he could. So
And you even add that, and Tom Pohlad talked about the strain it's put on the family, and the relationship between him and Joe has suffered, and which is understandable. If you
sure.
got pushed out and they brought your older
Yeah.
brother in to run the thing that you've dreamed of running, but that goes to what I'm saying. Why do they want this?
Yeah.
Why do they
Right.
want to lose 500 million and have Minnesota hate them, have their
Yeah.
name be garbage because it's associated with what they're doing to the team, and it's
Must
putting
be
a
the
strain on
money.
right. Or they're masochists.
Right. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
this.
That's it. Yeah.
It's weird that a whole family would be into that. I don't think that's a genetic thing.
Yeah.
But okay, so I think there was one other. Let me just look at my little notes here. So yeah, same playbook. Let's hope they don't go fully into the contraction ballpark threats of moving. I wouldn't. I
Right.
don't put anything past them at this
Right.
point. Uh, but and the other thing, just that I made a quick note of, was like, we talked about this at the time 2 weeks ago when I was like fresh from coming off the press conference, but it's just such a missed opportunity, even on a mid-tier acquisition scale, to hold this press conference, get eyes and ears on you, position it as Tom Pohlad's coming in, new broom sweeps clean, he's going to make changes, he's trying to say all the right things, and then you go, what, have you guys any trades, any signings, any promise of spending money, any promise of competing? It's like, no, actually, we're not going to do that. Like, that'd be
No.
crazy. It's such a missed opportunity from a PR, marketing, fan morale standpoint. You only get, and you can argue that people are so disillusioned by 3 years ago Joe Pohlad kind of trying to position himself the same way, that when Tom Pohlad, it's already falling on deaf ears. Let's say
Sure.
it's not falling on deaf ears. Let's say people are viewing Tom Pohlad with an open mind and some skepticism, but some optimism. It's such a missed opportunity to not pair that
Right.
with something. Hey, yeah, here's Tom Pohlad. He's going to talk about competing and talk about changing things and all that. And we signed, an $8 million reliever.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not asking for much, but
Or
it is.
Josh Bell for that matter. Like if they would have held off on
That's true, yeah.
Right. I mean,
I
like,
wonder about that. Just
yeah.
something where it's like, hey, here's a couple of moves. We made a trade to do that, and then just do nothing, and there's no promise of anything. Is like, you're almost asking fans to ignore you. And that kind of goes back to what I'm saying about the timing of moves in general. In a lot of ways, we've joked like they've since the end of 2023, they've seemingly done everything possible to push fans away. And I think on a small scale, this is an example of that too, where it's like, we're not going to do anything till February, so no one has to pay attention to us. We're going to have a big press conference where the new owner comes in, and we're not going to promise anything. We're not going to do
Right,
anything. It's
yes.
like, well, you just wasted these opportunities. But, and I also think I've heard from quite a few people where it's like, well, why do you want them to bring in some more veterans, even on a mid-tier scale? Wouldn't you rather they commit fully to a youth movement and give opportunities to their young players? And that's valid. I used to complain the opposite way in
Sure.
the early 2000s because they would have like Juan Castro at shortstop instead of giving Jason
Sure.
Bartlett a chance. And there's
Right.
many examples. What I will say is, I think that's a false choice with the 2026 Twins
Yeah. Right.
because I think that's
Do we
just
have a first baseman that's banging at the door right now? I don't
Exactly.
think we do. Right now, you can maybe suggest on a relieving standpoint that they've got a couple of arms that they should probably be moving to the bullpen, and I'm pretty sure that they will. But that just pushes out some other arms that aren't quite as good. You're not you it's not like you can't have Marco Raya be a premier reliever because you've got another veteran decent reliever on there. No, you're just going to push out the eighth guy
Right.
on the bullpen.
There's 8 spots to fill,
Right.
and realistically, probably 12 spots to fill in terms of
Right.
guys getting and you filled 3.5 of them right
Right.
now. Like
That's right.
you have room for Prelip and Raya and whatever. And to your point, they don't have a first base prospect, a DH prospect, and they, for whatever reason, have been unwilling to move a Walner, Larnach, corner outfield type to first base. Believe me, if you had the first base equivalent of Luke Keisho or Walker Jenkins or Emmanuel Rodriguez, or even
we
a
wouldn't be
slightly,
saying, "Hey, go sign a veteran first baseman."
right?
Yeah,
I'd be
right.
saying just either have a placeholder until you call that guy up, or just give that guy the job. But that's not the reality that they're in. And the bullpen, I think, is an even better example. And I'll take it a step further with the bullpen. Signing 2 or 3 relievers is not going to keep Connor Prelip from getting an opportunity
exactly.
this
Right.
season if he's healthy and pitching well.
Right.
It's not going to stop a starter from moving to the bullpen and having success. They have plenty of openings. And I would actually kind of make the flip side argument, which is if you are going to go with a youth movement in the bullpen with Prelip and Raya and who knows, Fester or Matthews or who knows, who converts to the bullpen. I think you're doing them a disservice to not have like the 9th inning,
Right.
8th inning role, at least initially, filled by guys who are not going to be, crapping their
Overwhelmed.
pants
Right,
and
yeah,
overwhelmed. And so I think if anything, if you're going to try to really lean into youth and really try to build a bullpen for the future, that's just as much reason to have a David Robertson type or a Danny Coulomb type, somebody who's been around the block, can still be effective, is not going to be scared to pitch the 9th and the 8th, at least early in the season, because then you give the young guys an opportunity to get their feet wet in lower leverage roles in a bullpen that is not just bleeding runs overall, and they can sort of push their way up the hierarchy based on their performance. And I think not having that, if they don't bring in any of those veterans, then you're just like, okay, well, we'll build the bullpen out of AAA guys and converted starters. And I think a year from now, that might be okay. But I think in April, May, and June, that is asking for trouble from a team standpoint, but also not putting the individual guys in the best chance to succeed.
Joan Duran, on the very first day of his baseball career in the majors, could throw 100 miles per hour, 104 miles per hour, right? But he wasn't the closer immediately.
Right.
He started out as the 7th guy in the bullpen or the 6th guy in the bullpen, and ascended quickly. Don't get me wrong, to the point where he was taking valuable setup innings, probably by May. But you still have to be able to let them ease their way into that and look around. You don't want everybody looking around going, like, who's going to do this? You got 8 scared people in the bullpen. Come on.
Right. I mean, even look at how they converted Varland to the bullpen.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like 3 years in the making.
Right.
And even last season, when he ascended quickly to a setup role because of his performance, I mean, first of all, he's like 26, so he wasn't even that young. But also, he started out multiple inning, middle relief, lower leverage. Now, it only lasted a few weeks because he was pitching really well and they needed him. But that's a much better approach than just being like, Cole Sands is the closer,
Right.
Justin Topa's the 8th inning guy, and I don't know, Connor Prelip's pitching the 7th. Because it's like, okay, now everybody's in a role that not only haven't they filled before, which I'm not that worried about, but it's just not a role they're suited for.
Right. Yes,
and if Cole Sands is the closer and he blows a couple saves early, have you wrecked Cole Sands in addition to wrecking your bullpen? So that's kind of how I view that. So I think it's a false choice. I mean, there are circumstances look, I'm not asking them to go out and acquire a veteran second baseman because that would be blocking Luke Keisho.
Right.
And I'm not asking them to go out and acquire a corner outfielder or even really an outfielder at all because I suspect by May or June, Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez, possibly some other guys could be in the mix. But they don't have
I
And
mean,
this has been an
I'll
organizational.
I'll take it a step further. We're not saying, despite the fact that we've got concerns about Brooks Lee playing shortstop or hitting in the majors, we're not
Right.
suggesting that they go out and get a $10 million a year shortstop,
Right.
right? Like, we will give them additional time to try and find their way to become the player we hope and or expect them to be or expected them to
Yeah.
be, right? The one example, the one counter example I would say is, yeah, we wouldn't mind seeing a good DH bat or a good first base mitt, a good first baseman come in here even after the Josh Bell signing, because Trevor Lennox had 1,600 at bats in the
Right.
majors. So, it's
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it comes from basketball and football. There's so much more direct uh, payoff when you tank.
right. Yes, right.
Where
That's right.
in basketball, people know like you collect the draft picks, you shed the salary, all that stuff. Same for football. It's like there's no, first of all, the draft picks themselves have considerably less value because they're
Sure.
a lot more risky. There's a lot more bust in baseball. But like this has been something that I felt the Twins did a disservice to themselves and fans from like 2011 to 2016, which is they were bad, but they were also really cheap.
Right. Yes.
And there's no, like, you don't have to be bad to rebuild.
Right. That's
You
right.
don't have to not bring in veterans just to give young guys. I mean, nobody, you don't have 26 young guys who are deserving of spots. So,
Right.
like, that's kind of what this situation is. It's like signing a couple relievers, signing a couple bats. They're literally not blocking anybody, but just in general, it gives you a decent foundation for a team. And I do think the side effect of not doing that and then expecting all the young guys to fill the roles. First of all, that's super optimistic in terms of wins and losses in 2026. But even setting that aside, you're not accounting for the fact that these guys got to play together for 7 months. And if you just fill the roster with a bunch of AAA guys and you don't bring any veterans to fill holes and you don't spend any money, the team's going to be really bad. But the team's also going to be really young and have no sort of context for life in the majors other than getting the snot kicked out of them for an uncompetitive team that no one cares about.
Yeah.
And I do think there's danger in there in terms of creating bad habits, terms of guys getting a bad mentality, not believing in themselves. And look, I don't think adding a couple of decent relievers is going to fix all that. But I do think structurally, you want to provide like a working environment where the young guys are not being immediately counted on as saviors. And also they can learn from people. They can learn what it's like to be in the majors. They can see how a veteran reliever works. Marco
Sure.
Raya's never been a reliever. Maybe he can watch whoever for 6 months. And also you just don't want to be in a situation where, you're 25 and 60 at the All-Star break and you're looking around, there's nobody who has more than a year of experience in the majors and you're all just sinking together.
Right.
I don't think that's a good situation. I don't think they're going to end up in that, but they need to make moves to not get in that spot. And then the last thing I was going to say is we talked a lot about like the early Fangraphs projection, putting them roughly 500, and a lot of people latched onto that as like, oh, okay, it's not so bad. I looked a couple things. FanDuel has odds to win the American League pennant, so just
Okay.
best teams in the American League.
Okay.
The Twins are 35-1, which whatever. I wouldn't encourage people to bet on that, but they have the fourth worst odds in the American League.
Okay.
So that puts them 12th out of 15 teams,
Sure.
ahead of only the A's, the Angels, and the White Sox in terms of gambling odds to win the American League.
Sure.
That would certainly suggest a losing record, obviously, if that were true.
Yes.
And then the other thing, Fangraphs, you can just sort by, on their depth chart page, you can just sort by everybody's current roster by projected WAR, which is not technically spitting out an exact record, but you can do the math on it basically
Right.
and figure out a record. They are 10th out of 15 teams in the American League.
Okay.
So that to me fits more of how I'm viewing it, barring some more moves. I don't expect them to be as bad as last year. I don't expect them to be among the 2 or 3 worst teams in the American League. But I also think the idea that they're just sort of average is relying quite a bit on one projection, and the stuff where you can put your money where your mouth is, views them, clearly in the
Yeah.
bottom half.
We haven't seen the expected total wins for any of the
No,
American League teams yet,
not
right?
up. They're not going to do it because there's still so many big signings to happen and stuff. So it's like
We'll get those probably in
things could be,
February. Yeah.
altered. But yeah, believe me, we'll talk about that when we get there. So there's just a little bit, like we said, we're working on the meltdown. Excited about the direction of that, and join us a lot. We had a lot of people. Thank you to everybody, new and old, who signed up for the Patreon over the holidays.
Yep.
I was very excited to see how many people gave gift subscriptions to people for Hanukkah and Christmas and the holidays. And then we also had a deal that you could buy a year-long subscription for 2026 at a discount. And I love seeing all the people sign up for that or switch over to that.
We might have if you join up there. If they do sign some relievers, we'll have an emergency podcast
Yes.
or an urgent care podcast, depending on how important of a signing
you-
it is.
Did you know I counted how many episodes we did exclusively for Patreon subscribers? So
Okay.
in 2026,
All right.
we did
In 2025.
2025, excuse me.
Yeah.
We did 103 episodes,
Did we really?
which is basically 2 a week for the whole year.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
We did 103 episodes just on the Patreon?
Yeah.
Holy moly. Okay. That's more than we've ever done before.
Yes.
And
two a week, basically. I mean, during the season, we do minimally 2 a week. And, we do emergency episodes and all
So part of what happened, I'll just get people behind the scenes here, is that, midway through the year, March, I guess, we switched from a per episode for $1 to a per month for $8. And we didn't have a choice to do that. We had to do that, right? But previously, we had kind of waited on doing Patreon episodes because we're like, well, we're going to charge people $1 for this. We want to make sure, et cetera, right? For $8 a month. And I was kind of like, well, it'll be interesting to see if they get their money's worth at $8 a month, which comes to 96 episodes, right?
Right.
And the truth is that, they got more than that because when we don't feel like we have to have $1 worth of stuff to talk about anymore to jump on the Patreon and be able to
we can give you
stuff,
some 86-cent episodes. If you bought a year subscription at the discount,
oh my God, yeah,
you paid 51 cents an episode for Patreon, which does not paint us. It paints us in a really good light in terms of giving people, our audience who we love, good value, which is important to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't paint us in the greatest light as businessmen.
Yes, sort of
because
the Pohladian version of businessman.
We have gone from charging $1 every episode to now many people paying 51 cents per episode.
I'm not sure we can continue to do it this way because we're just losing money left and right.
We're down 500 million. We're gonna actually Craig Leopold is gonna come in and give us a little jump start in terms of capital.
That's it. Yeah.
But it makes me. I'm perhaps John might argue too obsessed with the idea of giving the audience good value.
Sure.
To the point that it's kept us from like putting out merchandise and stuff like that extra people would want. So I'm very happy that the people who have been with us for a long time and signed up for the year can end 2025 feeling like we got a bunch of Twins talk. Hopefully you guys liked it. We were really happy with the guests we had on and how the year went, despite the team's best efforts to make this not a fun season. And I like the idea of people who have been with us for years or people who have signed up for the whole season, maybe at the end of the year going, boy, these guys are bad businessmen. They gave us basically half off and more content for less money. Like, what are we doing? I love to hear that. Now, does my bank account love to hear that? Does my partner love to hear that? No, but I like the audience being happy. So thank you guys. Anybody who signed up, and it's not too late. If you sign up now, go get the year one. You'll end up paying, I don't know, 60 cents an episode. You can be with us through all of 2026, the highs, the lows, whatever. It's just Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com patreon.com/Gleeman.
And we should probably thank our sponsors who saved
Yes.
them the 60 cents for this episode.
That's right.
That's right. Thanks to all of our sponsors, but a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Black Stack Brewing. It's now being distributed to all of Greater Minnesota. It's also now going to be served at the Winter Meltdown. So stop by your favorite liquor store or the Winter Meltdown or the Black Stack Tap Room to grab your favorite brew or to try something new.
Goodbye.
See you, folks. And welcome to the end of this video. There's lots more. For another, just click on one of these boxes.
Or click on this circle in the middle to subscribe to all of our Twins Talk.
Thank you.
Cleveland.